I was pulling cookies from the oven when my husband called from the living room. "Eleanor, can you come sit with me for a bit?" "In a minute," I called back, not looking up. The kitchen was a mess, flour everywhere, dishes piled in the sink. And these cookies, his favorite oatmeal raisin, needed to cool on the rack just right. In a minute, I thought. Just let me finish this first. That minute stretched longer than I understood. Much longer. Most people don't lose their marriages in big fights or affairs. They lose them in minutes. The small ones they kept promising but never gave. The moments that seemed so ordinary they couldn't possibly matter. My name is Eleanor. I am 78 years old. I was married for 41 years, and I'm not angry about what happened. I'm not bitter. I'm just honest in a way I wasn't for most of my life. My husband's last words to me weren't angry either. They were gentle. That's what broke me open. "I just wanted your time," he said. "That's all I ever wanted. I learned something I cannot undo, but maybe if you are still in time, you can. If you've ever said those words to someone you love, in a minute, drop them in the comments right now. You'll understand why before this is over." I was 22 when we married. He was 24. He had kind eyes and laughed at his own jokes, which I found charming then and occasionally irritating later. I didn't know myself well at 22. I just knew I wanted something steady. He seemed like the beginning of one. We started with nothing. A small rented apartment with a rusty old cooking stove and an oven covered in years of other people's grease. No furniture, no bed. We hung an old bedsheet over the window because we couldn't afford curtains. We slept on the floor on a blanket, whispering about our dreams in the dark. We were so determined to change our circumstances, to build something better for our future. Those early struggles bound us together. We had a shared enemy, poverty, and we faced it as a team. I remember sitting on that hard floor, eating soup from chipped bowls, looking at him across our dining room and thinking, this is enough. This is more than enough. But life moves fast when you're young and certain. He worked long hours at the factory, then took night classes to get ahead. I worked too, then stayed home when the children came. Days filled themselves without asking my permission first. Mornings were noise and rushing. Evenings were tired and quiet. I was good at keeping things running, meals on time, bills paid. Nothing fell apart on my watch. I took genuine pride in that. I believed love showed itself through reliability, through not letting things come undone. I didn't think much about closeness. I assumed it would take care of itself. I was wrong. But I didn't know that then. We didn't argue much. I preferred silence over disagreement. I thought successful long marriages worked this way, saying less to avoid saying the wrong thing. Arguments seemed unnecessary, and silence was the best way to prevent them. At least that's what I believed. We also didn't share much. I never asked what frightened him. He never asked what I missed. We talked about what was practical, children, money, plans. The rest, I decided, was unnecessary, something people on television made too much of. When he tried to talk after dinner, my mind was already somewhere else. What still needed doing, what had not been finished. If he paused mid-sentence, I filled the silence. If he remembered something differently than I did, I corrected him. Not unkindly, I thought, just accurately. I liked things clear. I liked being right. Years went on, and habits hardened like old wood. He would look at me sometimes longer than the moment required. I did not ask why. He would ask me to sit with him for a little while. I would say, in a minute. He would come to the doorway and just stand there. I would keep moving. I told myself this was what long marriages became. That comfort was the same as connection. That loyalty was the same as love. I confused calm with closeness. I confused staying with being present. I see that now so clearly it hurts to look at. He changed slowly, the way most things do when you're not watching carefully enough. We'd finally achieved what we'd dreamed of in those early days on the floor of our first apartment. A bright, airy house with a small but beautiful lawn, proper furniture, lovely curtains. The children were doing well in school. Everything we'd once whispered about in the dark had come true. But once we had it all, I spent every waking moment maintaining it, cleaning, organizing, rearranging, polishing. I'd talk to myself while I worked, making lists out loud, answering my own questions. I didn't seem to need anyone else's input anymore, not even his. I barely noticed when his laughter softened over the years, when his shoulders rounded. He still fixed things around the house, still asked if I needed help. I answered without looking up, already moving to the next task. He began to linger in doorways. I noticed it, but didn't wonder about it. He repeated stories we had told many times, not because his memory was failing, but because he wanted someone to sit still and listen. He sat nearer to me on the couch than he used to, as though closeness had to be found in small distances when the larger one couldn't be crossed. I felt impatient. I had things to do. There was always one more thing. I told myself there would be another evening, another quiet weekend, another chance for us to simply exist together without hurry. I didn't know that years can be wasted quietly, that you can lose something without ever once dropping it, that love doesn't always leave in a storm. Sometimes it fades while you're completely certain it's still there. The years passed. Our children grew up, finished school, and became busy with their own lives. The sun of our life was beginning to set. His strength was fading. My hands trembled more often now. Our children sent money that mostly went to medications. They say when responsibilities decrease, realization begins. How true that is. My husband couldn't work anymore. His body had given what it could, but I joined the community center to escape the silence of our home. I took up gardening. Anything to avoid spending too much time inside those walls with him while he sat alone. One afternoon, he sat in his chair by the window. That chair had been there for years. I cannot tell you why I noticed it more that day. The light was low and soft. I was on the couch folding towels, matching corners the way I had always done. He asked me to come sit with him. His voice was not weak, just quiet. I said I would, in a minute. I meant it. That minute stretched longer than I realized. When I finally looked up, his eyes were closed, not asleep, just resting, just waiting. I went and sat beside him anyway. He opened his eyes. He smiled, the way a person smiles when they have stopped expecting something and then received it anyway. We did not say anything important. That is precisely what stays with me, not the big conversations we never had. That small, still afternoon when I finally sat down, 1 minute too late, after 41 years of minutes. After that, things moved the way they move at the end of a life. Pale walls, strange sounds, a room that did not feel like anywhere we had ever lived. I held his hand more in those final weeks than in all our years combined. It felt like learning something in the wrong order. When he spoke his last clear words to me, they were not angry, not heavy with blame, not accusations dressed as memories. He said he wished we had talked more. He said he loved our life, but he wished we had been closer inside of it. Then he squeezed my hand gently, the way you squeeze the hand of someone you do not want to feel accused. I could not speak. There was nothing to argue with, no defense to offer. The truth was calm. It had settled, and somehow the calmness of it was worse than any anger could have been. Anger I would have known how to survive. Gentleness I did not. After he was gone, the house did not feel louder. It did not feel dramatic. It felt honest, like a room with the curtains finally pulled back. I walked through it slowly and felt the space where something should have been. Not his body, his presence. The warmth of someone who had wanted my attention and gradually, quietly, learned to stop asking for it. I sat in the living room for the first time in years. The table had dust on it. The chairs were still neat and untouched. I understood then that this room had been waiting, the way he had been waiting, for me to slow down long enough to actually be somewhere. Regret does not always announce itself. Most days it is quieter than that. It looks like remembering how often he asked for very little. A few minutes, a seat beside him, an ear that was not already somewhere else, things I thought I could not spare, even though I had decades. I do not drown in guilt. That would be another way of keeping busy, another way of not sitting still with the truth. I see myself clearly now. I was practical. I was reliable. I was tired in the way women who hold everything together are always tired. I believed love survived on effort alone. I did not understand that attention is effort too, that sitting down is effort, that presence is not passive. It is a decision made again and again in small moments that do not announce their importance until they are behind you. What I lost was not years on a calendar. It was closeness, the quiet knowing of another person, the warmth of being truly seen by someone who chose to keep looking. Those things are not given to you. They have to be chosen every day in ordinary minutes. If you are still in time, and some of you are, I will only ask this of you.
When someone asks you to sit, sit. When someone tells a story you have heard before, let them. When the house goes quiet and there is still someone in it with you, do not fill that quiet. Just be in it, together. You do not need perfect words. You do not need a long conversation. You need minutes, small minutes given willingly before you run out of them. I loved him. I still do. I only learned too late that love needs room to breathe, and that room is built from moments, not from years. I carry that truth gently now, not with shame, not with fear, just with honesty. That is all I have left to give. If Eleanor's story reached you today, if any part of it felt like something you have lived or something you are living right now, drop the word "still" in the comments. Just that one word. Because love that is still there, even after everything, that deserves to be named.